More pain at the pumps as the fuel price hits record highs from today. A softer rand combined with rising oil prices continues to push petrol prices higher this year. Motorists will now fork out 49 cents per litre more for petrol and 59 cents for diesel from today. The wholesale price of illuminating paraffin rises 52 cents per litre. The rand appreciated from 11 rand 85 to 11 rand 95 to the dollar during the period under review. On Monday, the rand traded at 12.44 after reaching a 3-month low last week. The average Brent crude oil price increased to about $65.71 to $70.36 per barrel during the period under review. We now joined to speak further on that petrol price hike by AA spokesperson Leighton Beard. Mr. Beard, thank you so much for joining us. Good evening to you.
Thank you, Mbo. Good to be with you.
This petrol price has hit record highs.
Yeah.
Why is that so?
So there are two main factors, and I think you spoke very briefly about it in your intro, but the two big factors are obviously international petroleum prices. This really is making the product that we are buying more expensive. But I think more importantly and critically for South Africans, the rand is weakening significantly against the US dollar. You mentioned that it was at 12.44 last week. At close of business today, it was around 12 rand 62. So that gives you an indication of how quickly the local currency is depreciating against the greenback. If it depreciates any further, we will see more increases going into June. So it's not good news at all for consumers. And I think, the fact that we are now paying 14 rand 72 for a litre of unleaded fuel, 93 octane inland, it's the highest it's ever been. It really is hitting consumers very, very hard. And it comes off the back of a big increase in April to the fuel price, more increases to toll rates, more expensive food because of the VAT increases. And there will undoubtedly be knock-on increases to public transport fares and also to goods that are transported via freight across the country. So really, all in all, I'm afraid I'm the bearer of bad news. Not great at all.
Could you say that we may have seen this coming? I mean, did April sort of hint at the volatility in the rand?
Look, I think there are some indications that the rand was under strain. But again, South Africa is part of the global community. Geopolitical developments are going to impact on the local currency. And, those factors are really out of the control of South Africans. The local economy is used as a barometer, and obviously that is going to be taken into consideration, in terms of the strength of the rand. But really, geopolitical developments internationally are going to force other major currencies, that the rand competes against or is measured against, higher or lower. And in this case, it really is strengthening the US dollar, which is a reason why the local currency is weakening so significantly.
Can you give us a snapshot of exactly how these prices are determined?
So a litre of petrol is determined by a number of factors. Obviously, we're buying it mainly from Singapore, Malaysia, Mediterranean countries, and we're paying for that obviously in US dollars. So the more expensive, that product becomes, the more we have to pay for it. When the money that we are using to pay for it becomes more expensive because of the rand US dollar exchange rate, it stands to reason that that money has to be recovered somehow. So around 6 rand of a price of petrol is made up of the actual price of the product that we buy. Then there's another 3 rand or so, 3 rand 50 that's added on top of that for storage, for transport of that fuel from wherever we buy it to South Africa. And then a percentage of that, almost 33% of that, is made up in taxes, indirect taxes. 5 rand 30 of that is made up of taxes. So you're paying for the general fuel levy and the road accident fund levy. The general fuel levy is a tax that is put on a litre of petrol that goes into the general fiscus. The Treasury can decide how they want to spend that. And then obviously the road accident fund levy, and the money collected from every litre of petrol through that levy is used to compensate victims of crashes. So it is made up of a number of different factors, but I think it's important to note that at least 33% of that is made up in indirect taxes.
And talk us through the impact on the goods transport. I mean, how does that affect that sector and the consumer in the end?
Well, look, I mean, if you're transporting goods from one place in South Africa to another over a specific distance, it's not only going to cost you in terms of fuel, but you're going to have to pay toll on certain roads as well. So that's already one increase that needs to be absorbed by those freight companies. Then they are obviously budgeting a certain amount of money for fuel every day for the transport of these goods across the country. If the fuel that they are using to transport these goods from one place to another place becomes more expensive, they certainly have to absorb those costs, and they absorb those costs by obviously increasing the prices for their product, and then that is then passed on obviously to the consumer. So a fuel increase is not only hitting motorists, it's hitting all consumers.
And we have on the line Chief Strategic Manager of Santaco, Bafana Magagula, who will also feel the pinch. Good afternoon, good evening to you, Mr. Magagula. We're hearing and we know that the price of fuel will hit a record high. What sort of impact does that have on you?
Good evening, Paul, and all your listeners. Well, it is a very sad moment. It's becoming harder and harder for the taxi operator out there. And surely this will leave us with no choice now but to definitely increase our prices. So consumers, we hope they will understand that we don't have a choice. Announcements of petrol increases are done publicly. Everybody hears that and everybody knows it is happening, and there is now no way we can continue absorbing these increases.
I want to go back to my guest in studio and ask you to just stay there, Mr. Magagula. We're seeing the direct impact on the consumer. How much leeway is there here for perhaps some good news anytime soon?
Yeah, very difficult. I just want to make the point that Mr. Magagula has also made. We're very reliant on taxis in South Africa for our economy. I don't think we can ignore that. It is a question of when they're going to increase their fares and not if. I think we also agreed on that. And I think that's part of the concern that the Automobile Association has, it's just increase after increase after increase for consumers. It really is hitting them very hard. We are very worried about that. When I look at the numbers today and I see, the rand against the US dollar and how it's depreciated, it's very difficult to put a specific number on exactly, what's going to happen going into June. But I think it's almost inevitable unless the rand strengthens considerably in the next couple of weeks, or unless international petroleum prices come down considerably over the next couple of weeks, or both, that we won't see another increase going into June. I think it is going to happen. It's just a question of how big that increase is going to be.
And let me take that back to you, Mr. Magagula. As Mr. Beard has pointed out, it's a matter of when. So when are you planning on announcing and being the bearer of bad news for those increases?
Well, look, we carrying the poorest of the poorest, our passengers that we transport. Most of them lives in what you call your Mandela villages. We have to give them at least a month and absorb whatever increases that are there. Even if it increases before we increase, we will still continue to absorb it. Our normal increments are effected during June and July months. And we want to stick to that because, unfortunately, we also facing these unfair competitions of your BRTs, unfair in a sense that we are not subsidized and they are subsidized. Therefore, if we increase too much, obviously, we will lose commuters to them, and we want to keep our customers. It's a very sad moment for a taxi operator.
And in terms of percentage, perhaps, if you'll indulge us, what are you looking at when you think of the increase?
Well, depending on the routes, we're looking at anything between 5 and 10%, especially on the local operations, and same maybe 5 to 15% on your long-haul routes.
Okay, thank you so much for your time there. I'm going to come back to you, Mr. Beard. I mean, we've already touched on the matter of you saying that you don't really know at this point when we could see a reprieve. We know that the price of fuel is adjusted on a monthly basis. What do you think might unfold in the next few weeks?
Yeah, very difficult to speculate. It's unfortunate that we are at this stage now at the highest level we've ever paid for fuel in South Africa. It is very expensive. The increases have been above inflation. The increases to the fuel levy and the road accident fund levy were around 11% increases from 2017. Those are way above inflation. Anything over 5% increases is an increase above inflation, which is really going to hit consumers very hard. We are worried that it's going to, if there is another significant increase of, anything more than 28 cents is going to push the price of fuel above 15 Rand a litre, which is an enormous amount of money to pay. And I think that unless things turn around quite dramatically in the next couple of weeks, we could either be very close to that or perhaps even over it.
I'm going to rope in Landiwe Mahlangu, NAVCOC Chief Economist, into this conversation. Good evening to you. Thank you so much for your time. Mr. Beard here has really just broken down the factors, the main factors that have led to this drastic increase in the price of fuel. What is your impact there? What is your input, pardon me?
Well, certainly I think this increase coming very much really at the back of the VAT, and there's also some kind of an expectation that with there may also be a possibility of on the Eskom tariff increase or update that is still underway. The situation, I think, may just, overall macroeconomically see some kind of, if you like, an increase in the inflation rate, which was really for some time, really more benign. All I'm saying is that it does not bode well, for a normal consumer, or indeed for the economic actors, like the things we could in the short term. Yeah.
Let me bring it back to you. I mean, you've emphasized that this is the highest we've seen in a long time. Is it the highest in a long time, or perhaps?
Well, the last high was in December last year, where it was 14.49 Rand. That was a record at that time. So going up to 14.72 Rand, it's a big jump. It's more than 20 cents. So certainly it is the highest it's ever been. As I explained earlier, if the current economic situation persists and prices don't adjust themselves downwards, we will certainly see a price higher than that going into June.
And let me go back to my guest on the line. What do you foresee as the likelihood of price adjustments?
Obviously, it's almost inevitable that they would actually kind of happen. Normally, particularly in terms of the fuel price, it's the multiplier effect of any increase, particularly on this quantum. It's certainly going to actually lead to an adjustment, and for that matter, upward in terms of actually various key prices, particularly key commodities. Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much. I'm going to leave it there with you, Landiwe Mahlangu. Thank you for your time and enjoy the rest of your evening. Just wrapping up, Mr. Beard, what saving tips do you have? Are there any ways that consumers can save fuel?
Yeah, tough question. We get asked this all the time, and I'm actually trying to rack my brain to think of things that we, that we say that actually make a difference. But first of all, keep your car in a good running condition. If your car's in a good condition, your tires are in a good condition, they're inflated properly, they balance properly, they align properly, your car is going to use the right amount of fuel. So it's very important to service your vehicle and keep it in a good condition, because then you're not going to need to use more fuel than obviously the car needs. If you stay close to shops or schools or other amenities that you normally drive to, you may consider either getting your bicycle out of storage or walking there instead of using your car. So for those short trips where you normally hop in the car, come back again. Now you can consider maybe I should just walk or use my bicycle. You can consider lift clubs, not only for yourself, but for your children as well. And then, you know, one of the things that we often suggest is try and avoid the traffic jams, the stop-start traffic in the morning and the afternoons. You know, negotiate if you can get to work earlier and leave earlier, or get to work later and leave later. You know, those are some of the ideas that we can give. This is a crunch time for a lot of people. A lot of belt tightening going to happen. It's not pleasant, but it is happening, I'm afraid. Yeah.
Yes, it's not pleasant, rather uncomfortable, but
Sure.
Indeed it is happening. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for having me.
Enjoy the rest of your evening. And that's where we leave it with our guest. Let's look at what's happening in other news. Former SABC COO Hlaudi Motsoeneng's fight against his dismissal